Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cassadaga and our Lyceum service this morning. I'd like to introduce our speaker this morning. He is a resident here in the organization. He is actually on the board of trustees here. I'd like to introduce Ray Carroll.
Good morning. Helen Keller once said, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They have to be felt with the heart." As Lou said, I'm on the board of trustees, and I came to Cassadaga about 10 years ago for our very first time. I had no clue what Cassadaga was all about 10 years ago. Sometimes I think I don't have a clue today, but I'm hanging in there. I came here as a runaway. Running away from things that I thought I needed to run away from. But I found out when you run away, you look in the mirror, who do you see but yourself? So you really take yourself with you. You're always with you when you run away, so you can't really run away from yourself. And I learned after that first visit here 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago to the day, that Cassadaga also it became for me a place, kind of like that song. You can always leave if you can leave anytime you like, but you can never. No, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's how it goes. Thinking about those 10 years, I was thinking about what I mentioned with finding the most beautiful and best things in life, and that's been my journey in those last 10 years. Helen Keller was blind, deaf, and communicated by touch. It took her 25 years to learn how to talk. She was the first person, deaf and blind, to get a college degree. She lived a full life to 88 and became a renowned speaker. Those challenges that she had in her life would seem overwhelming to anyone, overwhelming to all of us. But at times in our life, we have what we think are overwhelming challenges. And maybe we need to have the strength to work through that, to see, the touch, to feel what's in our heart. It was 10 years ago that I came down here. Now, before I came down, I lived up in Pennsylvania. I was married for 42 years to the love of my life. We knew each other since I took her to her senior prom in high school, and so I knew her for 3 or 4 years before our 42nd year. And our 42nd year, in May of 2011, I remember vividly like it was yesterday, sitting on the edge of a bed and looking down at Mary, my wife. She had been pretty quiet and restful for the last couple of days. And standing next to her was the hospice nurse. She was suffering from a cancer that was rare and was misdiagnosed and hit her really hard in the end. Never been in the hospital except for having 4 children. It was the only time she was in the hospital. When I looked down at her, the hospice nurse said to me, it's close, it's getting close. So I held her hand and I said I loved her. And something happened that the hospice nurse said she had never seen before. She opened her eyes wide. I saw her pupils dilate like that and then close. Her eyes interlocked with mine for a second. And I knew that she couldn't speak, but I could sense, I could feel in my heart that she was saying, "I love you back." So that was probably the most challenging time in my life, and kind of confused me completely. Because we've all been through grief. We've all had losses. And what most people don't tell you is when you lose someone, you lose more than that person. You lose your lifestyle. You lose all the plans you had. I had been recently retired before that. My wife was only 63 years old at the time. And we had planned to travel and go places. And we did a little bit of it. But then the sickness came real fast. And it was tough for her to travel. and our travel was limited in the last 6 months to back and forth between the hospital. Life holds challenges for us all. This was my challenging moment, a moment that changed me forever, because all my plans were made. I had waited my whole life to retire, have fun, play with the grandkids, travel, do all the things that we wanted to do, the things that I couldn't do when I was dedicated way too much to my job, when I spent way too much time on the road, way too much time working 15, 16 hours a day. So what happens when life changes for you? When something like grief happens, and it happens to all of us, you go through all those stages. You're angry, you're frustrated, you're upset with the world, nothing's right. Your plans are all screwed up. And I went through all that. And what happened was I finally got to a state where it was depression. How could this happen to me? How could it happen to anyone? It's not fair. So we used to go to, over the next couple months, I did what most people do. You cry a lot. You get angry with the world, angry with what happens, and then you end up in depression. And I always thought I was a strong kind of person, but I guess I was not able to handle that kind of stuff. So I changed my plans. You have to change your life plans. So what's your choices? Ray, what's your choices? Well, Ray says, my choices are, I don't want to be around anymore. Let's kind of end it. Maybe I can end up with Mary, because if there is a place called heaven or an afterlife, maybe we can meet up again. So I didn't want to, because I'm trying to be a nice guy. I don't want the kids to have this mess, finding their dad. So I had a heart issue at the time. I had 2 stents, and I was supposed to take it easy somewhat. Well, this was in the summertime, so through the summer, I would go to a place called Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful place. It was built by the DuPont family. It was their getaway home from Delaware. It was southeastern Pennsylvania. Gorgeous place, acres and acres of woods and flowers and gardens and arboretum. So I would go there on the hottest days I could find. And I would run and hard and walk hard, and I'd get that chest pounding. And I'd say, this is good. The old man's going to die right here. The kids all think, oh, how sad. The heart got to him. And I did that, and I was hurting and in pain. But then nothing happened. So I would come back the next day and the next day. And I would do that day after day, and just hurt more and more. And then finally, it just wasn't working for me, because I wasn't dying like I was supposed to. I was hurting a lot, really. It was painful. But I went to the heart doctor, and I told him, a regular 6-month checkup. And he said, Ray, whatever you're doing, keep it up, because you're healthier now than you ever been, and you probably added 20 years to your life. So we don't always plan what happens to us. God has plans for us, and so he set the plan. It was shortly after Mary died, in the beginning of June, so again, almost 10 years to the day, that I came down here for the first time. And that was because in my professional life, I used to travel a lot. And I felt comfort on the road. Now, I'm going back every day to a big, empty 4-bedroom, 3-bath house that nobody's in but me, And now it's time, after the kids, they're all back to work, back to school, they're all doing their things, and their life resumes. Mine doesn't. That's what happens after you lose somebody like that. So I figure, well, I'm going to hit the road. I hop in the car and I start driving south, trying to find the memories that'll maybe bring back some good feeling to me. Trying to find the best and the beautiful things in life. Trying to put that feeling back in my heart. So I headed south from Pennsylvania. We lived in southeastern Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, between Philadelphia and Lancaster. headed south and tried to visit all the places that meant something to me or to me and Mary. Went to Washington, D.C., where I worked for the last 6 years of my career. Met some friends there. Went to Virginia Beach and went kind of walked the beach and then realized, this is not so much fun by yourself. My memories is being there with my wife and kids. Went to Wilmington, North Carolina, where I went on a business trip one time and brought Mary with me. Went to Charleston, South Carolina. Then I figured, well, I'm this far, why not go to Florida? Then I remembered, well, there's a place that we didn't go together. A place that I always thought seemed kind of strange. And I didn't know if I really wanted to go, but Mary always wanted to go. So I figured, let's try it. Let's see what this Cassadaga thing is. So I came to Cassadaga. I don't even remember what day of the week it was, but this is in 2011, June 2011. I got here, and the first thing I saw was kind of shabby houses and, all these signs out here about psychics and hard readings and stuff. And I figured, this is kind of like a carnival-looking place, kind of a little strange, I don't know what I was expecting. Mary had seen the show. We had watched together the show Nobody Dies in Lilydale. I don't know if anybody has seen that, but it talks about Lilydale and the mediumship there. And we had planned to go there, but then she got sick, and that's only a summer place. So she had talked about Cassadaga when she found that, but then she got too sick for us to come down, even though it's a year-round place here. Excuse me. So I came through Cassadaga. I walked the streets, and well, to tell you the truth, I was not really that impressed. There's been a lot done here. If any of you have been coming here over the years, it's a lot neater looking now, and it's getting better all the time. We're going to have our temple open in another month, and our pastor's going to be down there bringing in the people. It's going to be great. So we're getting back. We're growing back the way it should be. But then it was really not that impressive, and I hate to say this, but I had a reading, but it wasn't really what I wanted, because I didn't know what I was looking for anyway. And I don't think Mary was ready to come through anyway, because when I had to sat with the reading with the medium, they excused themselves for a minute to leave the room and had to do something. Well, as I was sitting there, I was thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I don't want to be here, And then out of nowhere came floating this tuft of hair from a dog or a cat and landed on my shoulder. I figured, okay, that's a signal from Mary. She was extremely allergic to animals. So I figured, let me get the heck out of here. She's not coming through. And the medium was very honest with me, came back and said, I'm sorry, she's just not coming through for me. Maybe we can try this another time or something. So they were very honest with me about it. I left, put that out of my mind, and headed home. When I had left, the kids were all worried that Dad's off on this goofy trip. We're never going to see him again. He's acting silly. Well, I had to tell them before I left that before I left for that trip, I had just picked up Mary's ashes and I stuck them at home. And I called them. I said, look, don't worry. If anything happens to me, you go in the closet and you see a box in there. Don't throw it away, because that's your mom, okay? So they knew that, I wanted to come back. I didn't want to have to go through that. So Cassadaga, there was something that happened when I was here that just made me feel a comfort level, a peace inside. And it probably planted a seed that I didn't even know was there, and it started to grow because I ignored it. I saw and felt things I didn't feel with my heart, like Helen Carroll said. So, excuse me. I have had my COVID shot, so okay. So I headed home. I figured that's enough, enough down memory lane that wasn't doing much for me, and headed back to Pennsylvania. Now, as I said, I lived in southeastern Pennsylvania, and that wasn't too far from the border of Maryland. And as I get close to home, with about 45 minutes from home, I decided, I really don't want to go home. I don't want to go back to that empty house, this crappy life that I have now. That nothing's really working for me. I can't even be successful in going through the depression thing. So that's not working for me. Nothing's working for me, So I stopped and I went into the casino there. I figured, well, maybe if I have a few drinks and gamble, maybe I'll feel better. Well, anybody that tells you that losing a lot of money and drinking too much is fun is lying to you, because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I finally decided it's time to get out, to head home. And I don't know if it's happened to any of you, but it's happened to me a lot. And it seems like it's happened to me more that I think about it now than I thought about it before. Where you'll hear a noise or a sound or a smell, and it reminds you of something. Maybe somebody's really there trying to tell you something and you don't even know it. But our mediums sense that. They know that there's a presence there. And we all should know that. If you feel it in your heart, there's a presence around you all the time. When I got back in the car in the parking lot of that casino, and I wanted to head home, I really didn't. I just wanted to sit there for a while. And I turned on the radio. Just then, a song came with that one line by John Mellencamp. Oh yeah, life goes on, long after the thrill of living is gone. And that was like another message to me. Okay, it's not going to be thrilling anymore, but life does go on. It goes on for all of us. It goes on, whether you like it or not. And whether you're 18 or 85, life goes on. The thrill may be gone at times. So then I realized maybe that's what I was looking for. I was looking for the thrill. Couldn't find it. By the way, I'm rambling on with stories, and I hope that somehow you can resonate with it. But if you have a comment or a question or anything like that, just let me know. So it was really a time that I couldn't feel. I couldn't feel what was good and best in life. So what do you do then? You try to go home and you make the best of it and kind of get angry at the world again. I drank a lot of wine. My house was such, I remember when Lil came up, when I told her what I was doing, she looked at me kind of strange. I used to ride my bicycle around inside the house at nighttime because there was nothing else to do. Drinking wine and riding my bicycle around the house. Kind of cool. Something I was never allowed to do with Mary, so it was kind of like a rebellion against her, I guess. But when I get back, I was after another little. That's right. I made the second trip to Cassadaga. So after that, I figured, well, maybe I didn't give it enough time. After, I go visit the kids and see they're all back. My family up in New York and in Pennsylvania, in the central part of the state, far from where I was living. Visit all them and see they're all happy. So it's time to try this one more time. A little seed was planting and starting to grow about Cassadaga. So let me come down again. So I came down again. That was in August. And in August, it was hot. Very hot here. But for some reason, I figured, Mary must have been telling me this. Give it a better chance. Give it some more time, because there's more to this than you know. So I figured I'll do that. I'll take a seminar. I'll take a workshop. I'll get another reading. I'll go to the service. I'll come to something like that. I'll go to the Lyceum. And I came to Lyceum. And I went to the service. And at that time, 10 years ago, the temple was closed. Because I think they were doing roof work at the time. And I remember when I came here, I was walking around. I guess I looked lost because this young lady came up and asked me, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for the church service." So Lillian was that young lady that escorted me up to here where they were holding the service like they do now. And it was a whole different experience I had that time. So the seed was starting to grow a little bit. My attachment to Cassadaga and to my understanding of spiritualism was starting to grow a little bit. I had an outstanding reading from a medium here who was extremely evidential and told me things that nobody would dare tell you, about my wife, you know, and it just impressed me that, they really are in touch here. The lecture was by a visitor here, Christopher Timms. He used to come here a lot. It was nice. And Lillian was in a seance with Dr. Gates. And then we met afterwards, after the service. And I went to a workshop, and she went to someplace else, and we met. And we had a nice conversation. It was wonderful. And I moved on, moved on to the next stop. Never knowing that something, again, was growing to bring me back here. This is a special place, very special place. A little goofy at times, but a special place. So I went home knowing a little bit more than I did, and at that time really being angry, because it's like everybody can get in touch with spirit. That's what I'm told. My both daughters had called me and told me, two of my daughters, I had 3 daughters at the time, 2 of my daughters called and said, Mom comes to me in dreams every night, and she talks to me, and it's really great, and I feel good about it. And my other daughter says, I saw her in the supermarket the other day. I swear it was her. She stopped and turned down the thing and looked at me and smiled. I said, well, that's not fair. I was with her for 42 years. You were only there for your kids, your babies. Come on. That's not right. And again, I think when you really need something and feel it in your heart, God will give it to you. That's what happens. This really happens. And I'm not sure if you think about it, you can think of times like that in your own life. When you really need something badly and you sincerely wish for it, it'll happen. You'll get it. Because that's the connection. That's the connection with spirit. Well, I got so frustrated and so angry that I just stormed around the house one night, and I said, I'm not even going to go back in my bedroom. I'm going to go down in the guest bedroom, and I'm going to sleep there from now on. It's Mary, you're not coming to me. That's not fair. Well, that night, before I went to, I sat late in bed, just angry. And the door was halfway open to the bedroom. The silhouette in the doorway came in. There was light in the hallway. And it was Mary. She came forward, laid down next to me, and I to this day, I know it was real. She hugged me. I could feel it. I knew she was there. And all I could say was, thank you. Now, my kids think I'm loony, or thought I was loony. But I got to tell you this, that I'm not somebody I would call myself a healthy skeptic. And I still am a skeptic, because I think a lot of times you can be fooled by things. But the other thing you should know is I spent 30 years as a federal agent. I was a federal fraud and corruption investigator. So I am a skeptic, and I look for evidence. And I don't just take things for granted. But that was real, and that was really a big turning point in my life. And then I knew that it was someday I was going to be back here in Cassadaga, because that's where it started. That's where the seeds got planted, and that's where it goes on. So, what happened? I did come back. The one meeting I had with Lou was kind of interesting, not Lou, with Lillian. I only knew her by her first name, because we chatted and had a nice conversation. And I got in this habit, this kind of strange habit, I guess it would be strange, because I was traveling so much. My only comfort was in run away. And so I just kept on running different places. I would go any place where I thought it would be fun to go. I went to ARE for a conference. I hated it. I went someplace else, didn't like it. But I went anywhere where I thought I would go, just to get away from home, so I wouldn't be home in that big house. But I ran into a lot of people on those trips, and Lillian was one of them. That just was nice. So I wanted to send her a little card, just saying thank you. But I didn't know where she lived, so you can do anything on a computer. She showed me the house that she was living in at the time, which, by the way, I live in now. The address on there, I saw on the thing, and so I wrote it Lillian to 426 Seneca Street, Cassadaga. Mailed it all. Well, sure enough, it came back, because they don't deliver mail to the address here. The post office doesn't. So I figured, what else? Now, she went to this thing they call a seance with this guy named Lou Gates. You know? So I'm going to send that back to Lou Gates. I'll look him up on the internet and tell him, if you know Lillian, can you pass it on? Well, he did. And there's another side to the story from Lillian's side. Maybe I'd let her tell that side of the story. But she eventually did get the card, and we started communicating by email. So I knew then, okay, there's at least somebody I know down there that I will feel comfortable going back with. And one of the things that Mary and I had always hoped to do, again, we didn't get around to do, is become snowbirds. So I figured, okay, here's my chance. I can be a snowbird. I'm going to come down and rent a place in New Smyrna Beach. And so that's what I did. So that 6 months after I was down here, really, came back in February. And rented a place over in New Smyrna Beach. And came over here almost every day. Still committed to my runaway pattern and still looking for those answers, hoping to find them here. And the day I came here was in the very beginning of February, and that day they were having a gala day. And Bill actually had a booth out here. So I went up to the booth, and she remembered me. And we started chatting. And again, we were always looking for signs. And signs, you'll see the signs if you're looking for them or if you're sensitive to it. I didn't even know about that kind of stuff, about recognizing things that are more than a coincidence. So I was telling Lil the story about my runaway lifestyle. And she just started laughing, and she said, well, come here, let me show you something. And she pointed down and took me over to where her little red Miata convertible was parked and pointed at the license plate. Her license plate is Runaway. So I figured, oh, this is great. Runaways. Now we got 2 runaways here. You know, it's somebody that I can relate to. And so what happened is after a month renting a place in New Smyrna, an apartment in the same building that Lil was in became available, and I was approved to move in there, and basically never left. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So there's ways of attracting you here. There's ways of keeping you here. And I can say honestly, I'm a spiritualist. I never knew what a spiritualist was. I never knew about principles. I never knew that this was more than just a place where people came and got readings. It's a lifestyle. It's a belief system. It's a philosophy, a science, and a religion. And I was never big for religions, you know, really. I grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, spent a little bit of time in the monastery. And then I got tired of that, so I left and went to the Lutheran church, became active in that, became a member of church council. But in organized religion, sometimes it's missing spiritualism, spiritual part. The spiritual part of religion is the part that sometimes misses. You get so hung up on dogma and on rules that you forget that what's really important is your connection with your God, with the Spirit that's around us all the time. And I think this is the place where you're going to find that, at least for me. I tried checking out, but I can't. I'm stuck here, so I'm stuck here. So, where am I at here? Again, if you have any questions, I'm kind of rambling with some stories, but I'm hoping that some of these stories will show you that spiritualism is regular people. It's real people.
Tell them how it came full circle with Katie.
Well, yeah. My daughter, Katie, was my youngest. She, a couple years ago, got diagnosed with breast cancer. And let me back up on that a little bit, because I just thought of something. Back up on that. When I actually decided to stay here again, my kids thought I was a little wacky. You know, sometimes I think I'm a little wacky by staying here because, it is what it is. But if you cut below all that and you see what spiritualism is all about, it's a wonderful, wonderful way of connecting with spirit. when Lil and I decided we were going to stay together, we decided to get married. Well, I had to sell the house up north. We had a big wedding down here. And everybody, all my new friends and all my new acquaintances were wonderful. You know, they welcomed me warmly. I had 130 people in the hotel over there for our reception. 4 people were missing, my 4 children, because they weren't ready for it. And that hurt me hard a lot. But they've come around since then. They can see that Dad's not crazy, that we don't agree, we would do that, but he's happy. And I think it was proved to them that this was the right woman for me and my right place to be. When my daughter Katie went through something similar to my wife, but Katie's illness lasted longer. Lil and I went up a couple times to Pennsylvania to visit with Katie and the family. She had 3 kids at home, a husband that was working, and a lot of times it was hard for them to help when Katie got, her cancer got worse. It spread to her brain. She had a brain tumor. She went through 2 brain operations. It was not nice. So we went up to help when we could. And the last time we went up there was, we took her to, she had a treatment in the hospital. And Doug had to work, so we said, well, we'll take Kate. We got to the hospital and something went really bad. We got in the middle of the treatment, she started to black out and have all kinds of convulsions and stuff. So they put her in the hospital, and the very next day said that it's too far. It's too far gone. You're going to have to go into hospice. Well, Katie decided she would go into hospice. So basically thought we had days. So we stayed up there. She went into hospice. She was there for 4 weeks. And we were with her. I asked her if there was anything I could do. Katie said, I just don't want to be alone. So Lil and I moved in that room with her. We were with her 24/7. That earned my kids' respect for that woman. And my respect, and Katie's respect, because we were there during all those hard times. Again, it was a gift, though. A gift in the sense that I was able to be with her. I was able to see her at a time that near the end of her life. I was able to hold her hand as she took her last breath. And we laughed and we joked together and talked about all kinds of things. Fed her all the chocolate she wanted to eat. Sat up in the middle of the night and watched goofy movies with her. It was the greatest time ever. And I would never wish that time away. Sometimes I look back when I say it was like being in a death waiting room. But never wish that waiting goes away. When you're waiting in long lines, it's still time. It's valuable time. Every minute is valuable. And that was valuable time with her. And she even, I guess, was a conduit for a little confirmation for me. Because years before that, I had a good friend that I grew up with. We were buddies from the time we were in first grade. And he passed away a few years before that with lung cancer. And had a really rough life toward the end and went through a divorce and a rough time. And when he died, I felt really bad about that because I had promised that I'd be hanging around with him, and I didn't as much as I thought I should. Well, when Katie, in her last couple of days, she started to see spirit, which happens a lot of times with people in a hospice situation. And she started talking to somebody. She's sitting in the bed talking. I said, who are you talking to? And she started laughing. She says, it's Brian. I said, Brian? Brian was my friend. And so I was sure that Brian must have been there, not just for her, but to reassure me that he was going to help her pass over. There's stories like that go on that in the last 10 years just have convinced me, as a federal criminal fraud investigator, spiritualism is for real. There is spirit on the other side. And I think the secret to it is, like Helen Keller says, you can't always see or touch or feel. You got to feel with your heart. That's how you really do it. So I hope you all feel it with your heart, and that life is good for you. And I hope you come back to Cassadaga many, many times. Is there any comments, questions, or observations? Yes.
Well, I have a
Yeah.
question. Online, do you try to meditate and connect on your own?
Meditation was one of the things that I learned here, and actually I started when I first graduated from high school. I went into a Christian Brothers Order, which is a religious semi-cloistered while you're going through training, and they taught me how to meditate and pray there, which I kind of lost that skill years ago. When I came back here, I started meditating again, and meditation is very, very important to keep you in touch and keep everything still inside, cut out all the chatter, and help you get in touch with the heart, in my belief. So, yes.
When I was growing up, I went to Catholic school first, right? But I don't ever remember ever not knowing that there's life after death and you go to heaven and God and stuff like that. I always knew that. That was like when I was this big.
Yeah, I always believed in God, and I believed in heaven and hell.
There was never a day that I doubted it or questioned it or had to get information about it or anything like that. I just always knew. It was like, I know I take my next breath, and that's it. That's how sure I am. You know what I'm saying? So there was never a time where I questioned anything about life after death or God or spirituality or I'm going to be more than this little body's going to die one day and I'm going to leave it. I always knew that.
That's great, John.
And to me, it was like no one ever had to teach me that. I don't remember a teacher or a priest or nun telling me anything about that.
They told you were going to go to hell if you sinned, though, right?
Well, I do remember those.
What
I had a
about,
lot of those sermons.
yeah, that's the blessing of spiritualists. We don't believe in a heaven.
Right.
What about the value of taking classes, like the first one you went to?
Well, the classes that was the other thing I meant to talk about. I immersed myself in everything here. I've taken so many classes with almost just about every teacher or medium here. I took a lot of classes with Lou Gates. I mean, I still remember one of the first ones. It was like the aha meeting to me with Lou. We did a blindfold thing. We all Lou had you blindfolded and said, somebody sitting in front of you, give them a reading. Can't touch, can't talk. And I figured, this is goofy. This just doesn't work. And he just kept on encouraging and saying, just go with what you get. Just go with you. And what amazed me is that I did that with, I think, 7 people. And 7 out of 7, I read them perfectly and said things to them that I was even afraid to say. I mean, I think I remember saying to someone, you chewed out somebody and used all kind of foul language this morning. You have a pit bull that you set loose on them, and it was all true. And I don't know where it came from. Yeah. So I think what happens when with mediumship, and I'm not a certified medium, it's something you really feel and you know when you know. So.
Over here, Ray.
Yes.
Well, when you first came into camp, we were really happy to see you. Oh my gosh, you have the light around you. You still have that light around you.
Okay.
But we were really, really happy for Lillian because she sparked up. She's like grew up. I don't know how to explain it, but all of a sudden she came in to a happier time than she was in before because we were in class together a lot, and it was and then you came, you were like the icing on the cake, what do you want to call it? But it was like, this is so cool, and we're so happy you're here with her, and that really, thank you.
Oh, thank you, everybody. And is it about time?
Yeah.
We're good to cut it off. Well, thank you for coming to Lyceum today. Please hang around for this service. Reverend Diane Davis will be the guest lecturer today, and hope you come out if you're seeing us from home. Come on out here in this wonderful place, and hopefully we'll do the same thing to you. You won't be able to leave. Thank you.